Hello everyone. Subscribe to the channel to get more videos. Also, let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. Now let's begin this one. I heard the truth about my marriage in a hallway, eavesdropping like a stranger. My name is Garrett Monroe. I'm 47 years old, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a systems engineer responsible for keeping the skies safe, managing software for air traffic control. But that day, none of my job's complexities prepared me for what I'd overhear. It was lunchtime, and I'd swung by City Hall, thinking I'd surprise my wife, Rachel. She worked at the licensing department, and it wasn't uncommon for me to pop in unexpectedly. Usually, I'd bring her favorite sandwich from the deli near the office. Today, I came empty-handed. Maybe it was a subconscious warning from fate itself. I walked through the heavy wooden doors and waved to Melissa at the front desk, who gave me a distracted nod. The office was quieter than usual, filled only with the low hum of copy machines and muffled conversations. Rachel's cubicle was toward the back, past the break room. I stopped abruptly before rounding the corner. Her voice, soft but unmistakable, drifted out clearly from the adjacent office, her boss's office, Deputy Commissioner Pierce. "Friday evening, then," she said, her tone warm, intimate. "Same place." "The usual hotel," Pierce replied, his voice smooth with familiarity. "I'll make the reservation under my name. Less suspicious that way." Rachel laughed, a quick, nervous sound. "You think he suspects anything yet?" Pierce's answer was casual, confident. "Garrett? He wouldn't notice if the sky was falling." I felt my stomach drop, a hollow sensation expanding inside me. My body froze in place. For a moment, I could hardly breathe. 21 years of marriage flashed through my mind, each image now tainted, shadowed by suspicion and betrayal. Footsteps approached from around the corner. I didn't have the strength to face her now, not without making a scene, losing control. Quietly, instinctively, I turned and walked out, unnoticed, like a ghost drifting away from my own life. I drove home in a daze, the Atlanta streets blurring past me. At every red light, I replayed their voices. "Friday evening. Same place. He wouldn't notice if the sky was falling." The words felt like daggers, stabbing again and again into the heart of our marriage. By the time I pulled into the driveway, anger had begun to replace shock, simmering beneath a thick layer of sadness. I parked in the garage and sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Everything felt distorted, out of sync. I felt stupid, betrayed. And yet, maybe worse, I felt guilty. Had I ignored signs? Had I been too trusting, too distracted by work, too sure of her love? The house was painfully quiet as I stepped inside. Pictures of us lined the walls, vacation at Myrtle Beach, Christmases, anniversaries. All these years, carefully preserved moments now felt false, hollow. I pulled my phone from my pocket and typed a short email to work, claiming I was sick. It wasn't exactly a lie. My chest felt tight, sickeningly so. I sank onto the couch, buried my head in my hands, and tried to make sense of it. Hours passed in a fog. Memories circled like vultures, dissecting every conversation we'd ever had. She'd seemed distant lately, absorbed in her phone more than usual. There had been late nights, supposed city council meetings that ran long. The pieces fell into place, fitting together perfectly now in the cruel clarity of hindsight. By early evening, my phone buzzed. Rachel's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment before letting it ring, the shrill sound echoing through the empty house. She didn't leave a voicemail. Instead, a simple text appeared seconds later. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." My heart twisted painfully. How easily she lied now. How effortlessly she discarded me. That night, sleep eluded me. Every creak of the house seemed louder, every shadow deeper. I thought about confronting her, about yelling, demanding answers, demanding apologies. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't change anything, not now. Instead, lying awake, staring at the ceiling, I realized I needed proof. If I was going to end this charade, I had to do it decisively. I wasn't about to let her deny what I'd heard. Wasn't going to let her twist things and paint me as paranoid or insecure. No, Rachel would face her betrayal head-on, with undeniable proof. I would confront her, Pierce, all of them. My mind began turning, methodically assembling the pieces I needed to gather evidence. I was good at solving puzzles. It was part of my job. I knew security systems, surveillance techniques. I knew how to gather data, how to track patterns. I wouldn't just expose the affair. I'd unravel it systematically, making sure no lie, no excuse could stand. But as I lay there, strategizing, a bitter thought crossed my mind. This was the most effort I'd put into my marriage in years, and it was to tear it apart. For the next few days, everything seemed surreal. My world had cracked open, and I felt like a ghost, wandering through fragments of my old life. I still hadn't faced Rachel. Instead, I watched from the edges, observing, trying to understand how deep the betrayal ran. Memories surfaced constantly, each one distorted now by suspicion. Like the company Christmas party last year. I remembered clearly how Rachel had laughed at some joke Pierce had made, placing her hand lightly on his arm, just a friendly gesture. But now, I couldn't stop wondering, was it already happening then? Had I been blind, even when the signs were right in front of me? Rachel continued her routine as if nothing had changed. Every evening, she came home from work, tossed her purse on the kitchen table, and talked about her day at City Hall, mundane stories of office politics and annoying coworkers. She asked me casual questions, always careful to keep conversations superficial. And I played along. I answered her questions mechanically, forcing a smile when needed, always cautious, watching. I wondered if she suspected anything, if there was ever a flicker of guilt behind her eyes. If there was, I couldn't see it. She was either incredibly good at pretending, or she genuinely believed she had nothing to fear from me. As each day passed, my anger shifted into something colder, deeper, a feeling of emptiness that gnawed at the edges of my mind. This wasn't just about Rachel anymore. It was about my entire identity, my trust, my sense of who I was. 21 years was more than half my adult life. I'd built everything around us, assuming our foundation was solid. Had there been others? Had I been oblivious for decades? The uncertainty ate at me, relentless and corrosive. One night, unable to bear the quiet house, I drove aimlessly through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, eventually pulling into the parking lot of Mitchell's Billiards, a worn-down pool hall I frequented when I needed to clear my head. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the clink of billiard balls. The bar stools were worn, the felt on the tables frayed around the edges. But I found comfort in its imperfections, a space that didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. I ordered bourbon, neat. I rarely drank, but tonight it felt necessary, like I was trying to burn away the numbness. At the corner table, a group of regulars were arguing about sports. Their voices blurred into background noise, a distraction from the thoughts I couldn't escape. After the first glass, I ordered a second, then a third, each sip pushing back the pain just a little, replacing it with something sharper. I felt a tap on my shoulder and turned to find a familiar face. Will Franklin, a fellow engineer I'd known since college. Garrett Monroe drinking alone on a weekday? Will said with a grin. Something must have really gone sideways. I forced a weak smile. Just had a rough couple of days, that's all. Will raised an eyebrow, studying me for a moment before nodding. Want company, or are you determined to drown alone? Sit, I said, grateful for any distraction. Please. Will ordered himself a drink and settled onto the stool next to me. For a while, we talked about trivial things, work, mutual acquaintances, and a project he was excited about. But after a pause, he leaned in, concern etched on his face. Seriously, Garrett, what's really going on? I hesitated, looking down into my glass. I think Rachel's having an affair. The words hung heavy between us. Will's eyes widened, then softened in sympathy. Are you sure? I overheard her. I admitted, bitterness filling my voice. She was planning to meet her boss at a hotel. I can't believe it, Will. 21 years. He sighed deeply, swirling the whiskey in his glass. I'm sorry, man. You don't deserve that. We sat in silence, the weight of the moment pressing on us both. Eventually, Will clapped a hand on my shoulder. So what now? You confronted her yet? No, I said quietly. I need proof. Something undeniable. Smart, he nodded, approving. Protect yourself. Don't give her any room to twist this. Will's words validated something I had already decided. I was done being passive, done waiting for Rachel to explain herself or apologize. I would take control of the narrative. My phone vibrated suddenly, breaking my thoughts. It was Rachel. I stared at the screen for a long moment, hesitating before finally answering. Hello. My voice felt foreign, distant. Her tone was cheerful, casual. Hey, Garrett. You okay? You're not home. I went out for a bit, I said, keeping my voice steady. Just needed some air. She paused, and something shifted in her voice, more guarded now. Everything all right? Fine, I lied. Just stressed from work. Oh, she said quickly, sounding relieved. Well, I'll be home soon. Want me to pick up anything? No, I answered flatly. I'll see you later. All right. Love you, she said, the words feeling meaningless. I hung up without responding, setting the phone down on the bar counter. Will was watching me carefully, reading my face. She's good, isn't she? He asked quietly. Just moving through life like everything's fine. She's better than I ever imagined, I said bitterly. Makes me wonder how long she's been doing this. He drained his glass, then stood. Well, whatever you decide to do, I've got your back. I nodded in gratitude as he left, feeling strangely comforted to have someone else know the truth, to share a bit of the burden I'd been carrying alone. When I finally made it home that night, Rachel was already asleep. I stood in the bedroom doorway, watching her peaceful face in the pale glow of streetlight. She looked innocent, unaware, the same woman I'd loved deeply for more than 2 decades. And yet, I felt nothing but emptiness now. Her phone lay charging beside the bed. For a moment, I considered taking it, digging for more evidence. But I stopped myself. That was too risky, too obvious. I needed a careful, methodical approach, one she would never see coming. I turned away from the bedroom, closing the door softly behind me. In the silence of our darkened house, a decision settled firmly inside me. No more doubt. No more passive watching. I was going to find the truth, definitively, completely, and then, when the time was right, I was going to make sure Rachel felt the full weight of her betrayal. It was late Friday evening when I finally set my plan in motion. I sat parked in a discreet corner of the City Hall parking lot, the engine off, my fingers gripping the steering wheel tightly as I waited for everyone to clear out. One by one, employees exited the building, their cars pulling away into the growing darkness. Soon the lot was nearly empty. I took a slow breath, steadying my nerves. My heart beat like a hammer. I'd spent my entire career building security measures, overseeing intricate software systems for air traffic control. But nothing I'd ever done had stakes quite like this. Slipping out of my car, I grabbed a small toolbox from the trunk and headed toward City Hall. My engineering badge and familiarity with security equipment had gotten me through countless locked doors before. Tonight, those skills would serve me in a very different way. The building's side entrance was secluded, away from the main street, poorly lit and rarely used. Months ago, I'd upgraded the building's security for Rachel as a favor, ironic, considering the circumstances. I punched in a master override code, a backdoor I'd left myself in case of emergencies. The lock clicked open immediately. Inside, the hallways were dark and deserted, illuminated faintly by emergency lights. I moved quietly toward Rachel's cubicle first. Her workspace was tidy, neat piles of papers stacked precisely at the edges. I shook my head bitterly. I'd always admired her meticulous nature, her sense of order. Now I wondered if even that was just a facade. It took only minutes to install a tiny audio and video device beneath the frame of her computer monitor, completely invisible to a casual glance. Then I moved quickly to Deputy Commissioner Pierce's private office down the hall. Pierce's space was grander, more spacious, dark mahogany desk, expensive-looking artwork lining the walls. He seemed like a man who enjoyed authority and privilege. I installed another small, discreet camera in a corner bookshelf, positioning it toward his desk. Next, I carefully connected both feeds remotely to my car's onboard system. From now on, every whispered conversation, every glance exchanged, would be sent live to a secured hard drive in my vehicle. Finished, I retraced my steps carefully, double-checking that everything looked untouched. As I exited the building, I exhaled slowly, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. There was no going back now. Over the next few days, I became a silent witness to my own betrayal. I monitored the feeds from City Hall constantly, each encounter between Rachel and Pierce adding more layers to my heartbreak. Casual flirtation, hushed laughter, small intimate gestures, they behaved as though the workplace was their private sanctuary. As I sat in my car one evening, sipping cold coffee and watching their conversation unfold in real time, Rachel reached into her purse, pulling out a small stack of receipts. "Did you file these yet?" Pierce asked her casually, barely glancing up. "Not yet," she smiled, handing him the papers. "Hotel receipts for your conference expenses. Better file them quick." Pierce chuckled softly. "You know, the best part of our little arrangement? Taxpayers unknowingly funding our romance." Rachel laughed with him, completely comfortable, completely unashamed. My stomach twisted sharply. I'd seen enough. I printed copies of every receipt I'd witnessed, each neatly categorized as city-funded expenses for fictional conferences and workshops. These were more than proof of infidelity. They were proof of corruption, Misuse of public funds, an offense I was paying for indirectly every time I paid property taxes, every time I contributed to local fundraisers, every dime I'd ever donated or paid to the city, now funding their hidden trysts. Anger rose in me like a tide, drowning out whatever remaining grief I'd felt. This had gone beyond personal betrayal. It was fraud, pure and simple. At home later, as Rachel prepared dinner in the kitchen, humming softly, I sat at my desk in our home office, sorting the growing pile of evidence. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built a career ensuring the safety and integrity of complex aviation systems. Now, I'd have to dismantle my own marriage and expose corruption in my own city hall. Garrett. Rachel's voice startled me, gentle and sweet as she appeared in the doorway. Dinner's ready. Everything okay? I forced a calm smile. Just finishing up some paperwork. She stepped into the room, glancing briefly at the scattered papers on my desk. You're working late a lot these days. I met her gaze carefully, searching her face for a hint of remorse, anything at all. Nothing. Her expression was serene, almost loving, as if nothing at all had changed. A lot of problems at work. I lied smoothly, my heart heavy with disappointment. But nothing I can't handle. You're always so good at handling problems, she said softly, leaning in and kissing me lightly on the cheek. Come eat before it gets cold. I followed her into the dining room, forcing myself to sit and eat, to make idle conversation about trivial things, weather, neighbors, weekend plans. Each word tasted like ash, meaningless chatter covering deeper rot. After dinner, Rachel went upstairs, leaving me alone in the quiet living room. I sat in my armchair, holding my phone tightly, my thoughts sharp and clear. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. I would take control of our finances, protect my assets, and secure myself legally. I'd contact an attorney to prepare divorce proceedings on grounds of adultery, documented meticulously through the evidence I'd gathered. And soon, very soon, I would confront her and pierce with undeniable proof. I picked up the phone and dialed the first number on my prepared list, a trusted divorce attorney recommended by Will. It rang twice before someone picked up. Law Office of Evan Harris. How can I help you? I need to set up a consultation, I said firmly. As soon as possible. May I ask the nature of your case? The receptionist asked politely. Divorce, I replied. Adultery, misuse of marital assets, everything. We have an opening tomorrow afternoon, she said efficiently. Would that work? Perfect, I answered, feeling grim satisfaction. I'll see you then. As I ended the call, the house around me felt different somehow, already slipping away into the past. The walls that had once held laughter and warmth now echoed with secrets and lies. I was preparing for war, but it was a war I was ready to fight. The following afternoon, I found myself seated across from Evan Harris in his polished law office downtown. The room was neat and professional, lined with law books and decorated with diplomas that spoke of success and expertise. Evan himself had a reputation, sharp, calculating, efficient. Exactly what I needed. He flipped methodically through the folder I had provided, his eyes narrowing slightly with each new piece of evidence. You've done your homework, he finally said, looking up at me with a slight nod of approval. Most clients don't come to me with such thorough documentation. I didn't have a choice, I admitted, my voice low and steady. I need to protect myself. I want this clean, clear, and decisive. Absolutely, he agreed, closing the folder. Given this evidence, we have an ironclad case for divorce on the grounds of adultery. We'll also have leverage if you want to negotiate the financial settlement aggressively. I want a fair split, nothing more. But if she resists, we push hard, I said firmly. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands together thoughtfully. Fine. Here's the first step. Safeguard your assets immediately. Move half your joint savings into a private account. Cancel any shared credit cards. Inform your investment manager to begin separating your portfolios. Do you think you can manage that discreetly? I nodded. Already planned on it. Good, he said crisply. The next step is filing official paperwork. Do you want her served directly, or do you prefer a less confrontational approach? No drama, I said, steadying myself. I'll handle that part personally, quietly. After I confront her and Pierce. His eyes flashed with curiosity. How exactly do you plan on handling the confrontation? I took a slow breath, choosing my words carefully. They have a hotel meeting scheduled tonight. I've arranged surveillance there as well. Once I have final confirmation, more footage, I'll confront them. Evan raised an eyebrow, a hint of concern in his expression. Be careful. Don't cross any lines. We don't want this blowing back on you legally. I won't, I assured him firmly. I'm careful. Nothing illegal, just clarity and certainty. Once the truth is out, they'll have nowhere left to hide. He nodded slowly, understanding. Understood. Keep records of everything. No aggressive confrontations. Just evidence and facts. I stood, offering my hand. Thank you, Evan. I appreciate your help. Call me immediately if anything changes, he said firmly. Remember, Garrett, facts, not emotions. I left Evan's office feeling a grim sense of control. Step 1 was complete. Now it was time to move forward financially. Back home, while Rachel was still at work, I logged into our joint bank account, transferring exactly half of our savings into a private account I'd opened just that morning. Next, I canceled every joint credit card, ignoring the slight pang of guilt as I imagined her confusion when they were suddenly declined. It was a necessary step, her affair, and the deception around it, meant I had no choice but to act decisively. When I finished with the banking, I called our investment advisor. Tim Nash answered cheerfully, his voice always friendly and professional. Garrett, good to hear from you. How's everything? I need your help with something important, Tim, I said, cutting straight to the point. I need to separate my investments from Rachel's immediately. A moment of silence hung between us before Tim spoke again, more carefully now. Garrett, is everything okay? I hesitated briefly. Tim was someone I trusted implicitly, and honesty felt right. No, Rachel and I are divorcing. It's complicated, but necessary. He sighed sympathetically. I'm sorry to hear that. Listen, I'll handle everything discreetly and quickly. Consider it done. Thanks, Tim, I said quietly, relief washing over me. I appreciate your help. Of course. Stay strong, he replied gently, ending the call. With financial security now assured, my attention turned toward tonight's hotel meeting. Pierce and Rachel had booked the presidential suite at the Marriott downtown. The arrogance of it still stunned me, using city funds to finance their illicit affairs. But tonight, the tables would turn. Late in the afternoon, I drove to the hotel. Earlier, I booked the suite directly myself, overriding their reservation. With my engineering expertise, I'd installed tiny, barely detectable cameras around the suite's common areas. I tested each feed carefully, ensuring everything was working flawlessly. The surveillance system was sophisticated, linked securely to my phone. Nothing would escape my notice. As evening approached, I left the suite, heading back to my car parked discreetly a few blocks away. There, in the privacy of the quiet vehicle, I waited and watched, eyes fixed firmly on the screen of my phone, the hotel room video feed clear and precise. Right on schedule, Rachel and Pierce arrived together, their demeanor relaxed, confident, entirely unaware of the storm waiting to strike. I watched them settle into the room, laughing casually, sharing a bottle of champagne, another charge undoubtedly billed as a business expense. The footage was undeniable. It was everything I needed, and it tore at me, even as I carefully recorded every second of their deceit. I forced myself to remain calm, steadying my breathing, rehearsing what came next. When I'd gathered sufficient evidence, I picked up my phone again and dialed the hotel's main line, requesting the presidential suite. Rachel's voice answered the phone, casual and unguarded. Hello? Enjoying yourselves? I asked coolly. There was a sudden pause, confusion in her voice now. Garrett? Is that you? I assume Pierce is there, too, I continued calmly. This is your one courtesy warning. Leave now. I've canceled your reservation. The front desk has already been informed that this room was booked under false pretenses. Garrett, I don't. I have everything recorded, Rachel, I interrupted coldly. Every meeting, every receipt, every lie. It's over. Silence stretched between us for a long moment. I could almost see her mind racing, desperately searching for an excuse, a lie, anything. You have 10 minutes, I said flatly. After that, security will escort you out. Don't come home tonight. We'll speak tomorrow. I hung up without waiting for a response. Through the surveillance camera, I saw her face pale in shock. Pierce jumped up, visibly panicked, their arrogance suddenly stripped away. Frantically, they scrambled around the suite, gathering their belongings in a humiliating rush. 10 minutes later, they hurriedly exited, embarrassed, furious, and completely defeated. I shut down the camera feed slowly, my hands trembling slightly as the adrenaline finally faded away, leaving only emptiness behind. Despite the successful execution of my plan, there was no joy, no satisfaction in watching my life unravel so thoroughly. But there was clarity, certainty. Tomorrow, I'd present Rachel with divorce papers. Tomorrow, I would finally confront the truth face to face, undeniably, completely. Tonight, I sat alone in my car, feeling hollow yet resolved, understanding that some battles must be fought, even when the victory tastes bitter. Saturday morning broke over Atlanta with a pale, tentative sun, as if sensing the storm that was about to erupt. I sat in my car, parked discreetly a block away from City Hall, hands resting firmly on the steering wheel. I'd hardly slept. Adrenaline had kept my mind sharp, replaying every step, every detail. Today would be the day that everyone, Rachel, Pierce, the entire city, faced the stark, unvarnished truth. In just 2 hours, the city would be streaming a live broadcast of the annual downtown parade, an event the mayor's office had heavily promoted. Hundreds of viewers, families, officials, residents, would tune in to see the floats, marching bands, smiling local leaders waving cheerfully from decorated convertibles. But they were about to see something far different. I'd spent the night in my makeshift control room, preparing a quiet override of the city's broadcast system. My years managing air traffic control software had taught me exactly how to intercept and reroute complex feeds discreetly and effectively. I'd checked every detail meticulously, testing and retesting the override to ensure perfection. Now, there was nothing left but to wait. My phone buzzed again, another frantic text from Rachel. Since last night's abrupt eviction from the hotel suite, she'd called and messaged repeatedly, each attempt growing increasingly desperate. I hadn't answered any of them. Instead, I'd used the hours to quietly finalize the divorce papers, now neatly stacked and waiting on our kitchen table. At exactly 9:30, I watched the parade's live stream begin, opening with bright music, cheerful commentators, and smiling politicians. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and pressed a single keystroke. Instantly, the official city feed froze for a heartbeat, just a flicker, before smoothly switching over to my pre-recorded footage. On every device tuned into the parade, instead of balloons and waving crowds, viewers saw the unmistakable interior of a hotel suite. The image was crisp, clear, and devastatingly explicit. I'd chosen footage carefully, making sure nothing graphic aired. But it was enough. Rachel and Pierce's intimate embrace, the obvious affection, the casual way they spoke about their deception and city-funded trysts. My phone began vibrating almost immediately. Calls from Rachel, Pierce, City Hall numbers, even a few curious colleagues and friends. I ignored them all, watching as my broadcast continued, each carefully chosen moment deepening the exposure. After 3 full minutes, I calmly tapped another key. The city's parade stream flickered again, seamlessly reverting back to the smiling commentators. But the damage had been done. It felt unreal, sitting in silence as the city, and the people who knew us, processed what they'd just witnessed. The quiet of the car was broken only by the constant buzz of my phone vibrating, relentless calls and messages. Everyone I knew had questions, outrage, confusion, disbelief. Finally, I picked up when my phone rang again, Rachel's number flashing urgently on the screen. Garrett. Her voice was trembling, frantic, filled with panic. "Oh my God, what have you done? I thought everyone should see what their taxes were funding." I replied quietly. You've ruined everything," she sobbed, desperation clear in her voice. "Do you understand what you've done to me?" "No," I answered coldly. "You did this, Rachel. You and Pierce." I just turned on the lights. "Garrett, please," she pleaded, her tone shifting to something more vulnerable, almost childlike. "Come home. We need to talk. Please." "There's nothing left to talk about," I said evenly. "There are papers waiting for you at home. Read them carefully, and then leave." She was silent for a long moment, the only sound her unsteady breathing. Then she whispered, her voice broken. "Why did you have to do it like this? You humiliated me in front of everyone. Now you understand exactly how I felt." I said quietly, my voice steady despite the tightness in my chest. "Goodbye, Rachel." I ended the call firmly, dropping the phone onto the passenger seat beside me. I closed my laptop, started the car, and began driving slowly, nowhere in particular, just needing distance from the chaos I'd unleashed. As I drove, calls continued flooding in, from city officials, news outlets, colleagues, friends, family. I ignored every single one. I knew there would be fallout, consequences, but I'd faced that possibility when I made this choice. Just before noon, I pulled into a quiet coffee shop on the outskirts of town. The barista barely glanced at me as she handed over my coffee, oblivious to the storm I just caused downtown. At a corner table, I sat quietly, staring out the window. I'd lost my job. I knew that already. Even if they hadn't called me yet, they would. A public scandal like this was an immediate termination. And yet, in spite of everything I'd lost in that moment, I felt an odd sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, there was clarity. No more secrets, no more lies, no more pretending. Everything was out in the open. I spent an hour at that table, my phone finally silent, the worst of the initial storm quieting. News spreads fast in a city like Atlanta, and by now, everyone who mattered knew the truth. The rest, investigations, formal inquiries, official reprimands, would follow soon enough. As I finally stood up to leave, someone entered the coffee shop and paused when he saw me. It was Will Franklin, my friend and confidant from the billiards bar. He approached cautiously, eyes filled with concern and curiosity. "Garrett," he said quietly, glancing around the nearly empty shop. "You all right?" "Fine," I replied, nodding tiredly. "You saw it?" "Half the city saw it," he said wryly. "You sure know how to make a point." "Had to be done," I murmured. "Had to make them face it." He nodded slowly, placing a hand firmly on my shoulder. "What's next?" I considered his question carefully, then finally smiled faintly. "Next? I face what's coming. Deal with the consequences." "You won't be alone," Will said simply, his voice firm. "You've got friends. People who understand." We stood quietly for a moment, sharing a mutual understanding of how profoundly life was about to change. But for once, that didn't frighten me. Instead, I felt ready, resolved. I'd done what needed to be done, even though the cost was immense. As I stepped out into the bright, clear sunlight, the city stretched out before me, still moving, still living, still unaware of everything yet to unfold. I took a long breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, the clarity of the moment settling around me. Whatever happened now, at least I had the truth. And that was worth whatever storm was coming. The house felt strangely unfamiliar when I finally returned that evening, shadows stretching across silent rooms. The air hung thick with the tension of everything I'd done, everything that had unfolded in the past 24 hours. My phone lay silent in my pocket now, its battery drained by endless calls and texts from friends, family, coworkers, everyone suddenly eager to know the details of my unraveling life. I stepped into the living room, and there, huddled on the couch in near darkness, was Rachel. She didn't look up at first, her gaze fixed blankly on the coffee table. She wore a rumpled robe, hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. "Rachel," I said softly, without emotion. She flinched slightly, slowly raising her eyes to meet mine. The look on her face was almost unrecognizable, hollow and defeated. Her voice was a quiet rasp when she finally spoke. "You destroyed my life." "You destroyed it," I corrected gently, moving slowly across the room to sit in the armchair opposite her. I simply stopped pretending it wasn't happening. Her expression tightened, raw emotion flickering briefly through her eyes. "You didn't have to do it like that publicly, in front of everyone. You didn't have to lie and cheat," I said evenly. "We both made choices. Now we both face consequences." Silence settled between us, heavy and suffocating. She turned her head, looking away, her shoulders trembling slightly as she began to cry again. The old me might have softened then, felt compelled to comfort her, to make it easier somehow. But that man was gone, buried beneath layers of betrayal. Instead, I reached to the folder resting quietly beside me on the table. I slid it gently across the coffee table toward her. "These are the divorce papers," I explained calmly. "It's fair. 50-50 division of everything. No demands, no tricks." Her eyes fell to the papers, a stunned expression crossing her face. For a moment, she stared at them blankly, as if the reality was too difficult to absorb. Then slowly, carefully, she reached forward, her hands trembling as she opened the folder, leafing through the documents. "This is really what you want?" she whispered finally, her voice tight. "It's not about wanting," I replied steadily. "It's about doing what's necessary." She swallowed hard, meeting my eyes again. "What if we try to fix it? Counseling something?" "It's far too late for that," I said firmly. "You didn't just betray me. You betrayed yourself. Us. Our life together. There's no going back." Rachel drew in a shaky breath, desperation flashing briefly in her eyes. "Pierce, he meant nothing. He's—" I held up a hand, stopping her words gently but firmly. "Don't. Just don't. I've heard everything already. Every word you exchanged, every lie, every justification. Pierce isn't going to help you now, Rachel. He's already planning his next moves without you. Her expression faltered, confusion giving way to sudden realization and pain. What do you mean? Without a word, I took out my phone, pressing play on a short clip I'd recorded earlier. Pierce speaking privately to a city attorney, his voice cool, detached, already distancing himself entirely. Rachel made her own choices. This was her mess, her bad judgment. I won't let it drag me down. Rachel's face turned pale, the color draining instantly. He said that. Yes, I said quietly. I warned you. People like Pierce, they protect themselves first. She looked away again, visibly shrinking as the realization hit her fully. A painful silence stretched between us before she spoke again, her voice broken. So what happens now? You signed the papers, I said softly. And then we both moved forward. Separately. Her eyes filled with fresh tears, but this time she nodded slowly, defeated. Reaching for the pen I'd placed on the table, she quietly began to sign, page after page, sealing our separation legally and permanently. When she finished, she placed the pen down, hands shaking visibly. She didn't look at me, just sat there quietly, tears slipping silently down her face. Where will I go? She asked weakly, barely audible. You can stay here for tonight, I said evenly. After that, go anywhere you want. Just don't stay here. She nodded slowly, no longer arguing or pleading. The fight had left her, replaced entirely by resignation. I stood up carefully, picking up the signed papers. For a moment, I looked down at her, feeling strangely empty. There was no satisfaction, no relief, just a deep, aching sadness for the life we'd lost, the memories we'd tarnished. I never meant for any of this, she whispered, her voice hollow. I know, I said gently, but intentions don't change reality. I left her there, walking slowly up the stairs to the bedroom alone. Everything around me felt surreal, as if it belonged to someone else. I began packing a suitcase, filling it quietly with necessities, deliberately ignoring the photographs, the mementos, the reminders of 21 years together. Downstairs, I heard Rachel crying softly, a sound muffled by walls and distance, yet somehow filling every corner of the empty house. I didn't go back down. I couldn't comfort her now. That part of us was finished. When dawn finally broke, I carried my suitcase quietly down the stairs. Rachel had fallen asleep on the sofa, curled beneath a blanket, her face peaceful now in exhausted oblivion. I paused briefly, looking at her for the last time, seeing clearly the woman I'd once loved deeply, the woman who had once been the very center of my world. I took one last quiet breath, stepped outside, and closed the door gently behind me. Outside, the morning air was cool and fresh, the city slowly awakening. I walked toward my car, suitcase in hand, a sense of painful finality settling heavily around me. Everything was different now. My home, my marriage, my career, everything unraveled, undone. Yet as I slid into the driver's seat, I felt something else beneath the sadness, a quiet, steady resolve. My future was uncertain, my old life completely dismantled. But it was still my life, still my choice. Starting the car, I pulled away slowly, watching the house shrink in the rearview mirror, until finally, it disappeared entirely. The road stretched out before me, open and unknown. I didn't know exactly where I was headed yet, but for the first time in a long time, I was moving forward on my own terms. I would face whatever came next, alone, yes, but with clarity and dignity. And that was enough, at least for now. It didn't take long for the repercussions of my actions to catch up to me. 3 days after the public exposure, I received an official letter from the FCC informing me of immediate disciplinary action and a pending investigation. My engineering license was suspended indefinitely, and my employment with Atlanta's civil aviation network terminated immediately. I'd anticipated it, of course. Still, holding the official notification in my hands made the reality undeniable. My career, something I'd spent decades cultivating with precision and integrity, was gone in an instant. All because I'd chosen to expose a painful truth publicly. But despite everything, I felt no regret. Public opinion was split. Some saw me as a justified whistleblower, exposing corruption and deceit at the highest local levels. Others labeled me as vindictive, reckless, or simply unhinged. My phone continued ringing with media inquiries, lawyers, and friends checking in, but I kept silent. My story had already spoken loudly enough. Rachel had quietly left our house after the confrontation, moving temporarily into a modest apartment across town. Friends informed me that she'd been suspended from her job pending a city investigation into misuse of funds. Pierce faced a harsher outcome. Within a week, he'd been forced to resign in disgrace, his reputation and marriage collapsing under the weight of his betrayal. I felt little satisfaction in it. Rather, I felt a grim acknowledgement of justice finally taking its course. A week after the broadcast, as I sat quietly in a corner booth at a small cafe just outside of the city, a familiar figure approached me cautiously. Evan Harris, my lawyer, slid into the seat opposite me, placing his coffee down carefully. "Garrett," he began quietly, watching me with professional concern. "How are you holding up?" "I'm managing," I answered, sipping my coffee thoughtfully. "All things considered." He nodded slowly, absorbing my response. "Your ex-wife signed everything without dispute. We finalized the divorce officially this morning. You're free of it now." I felt a strange weight lift slightly from my shoulders, something symbolic in the finality of it. "Thanks, Evan, for everything." "It's my job," he said, offering a rare smile. "You made it easier by staying disciplined, collected. You did exactly what was necessary, no more, no less." He paused, looking at me carefully. "As for your professional situation, I think I can help." I raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering through my fatigue. "What do you mean?" Evan leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "I got a call yesterday from a client who specializes in federal aviation contracts. Your skills, your reputation, at least before all this, are exceptional. They're interested in you. Obviously, your public image makes direct employment difficult, but as a private consultant, behind-the-scenes work could still be lucrative." Surprise and relief surged through me, tempered by caution. "They know everything? The broadcast, the scandal?" He nodded decisively. "Yes. And they're sympathetic. Frankly, they think you showed courage and integrity. They don't condone your methods, but they respect your motives and skill set. It's a quiet job, out of the spotlight, but stable, professional. Think about it." I sat back slowly, absorbing the unexpected lifeline being offered. For the first time in days, a small flicker of hope illuminated the darkness around me. "I'll think about it. Definitely. Thank you, Evan." "Good," he said, satisfied. "I'll send over their details later. Let's rebuild this slowly, step by step." As Evan left, I sat quietly finishing my coffee, considering this new opportunity. It wasn't redemption, not exactly, but it was a start. It was something stable amidst the chaos I'd created. Weeks passed, and I accepted the consulting position, finding unexpected satisfaction working quietly behind the scenes. The scandal slowly faded from the city's headlines, replaced by newer dramas. Rachel took a job at a small nonprofit, her previous position now permanently closed to her. Pierce disappeared entirely from public life, his name tarnished beyond repair. One afternoon, a few months later, as I sat quietly at a downtown cafe going through technical documents, a shadow fell across my table. I looked up, instantly recognizing Pierce standing hesitantly before me. He looked disheveled, thinner, far from the polished man he'd once been. "Garrett," he began awkwardly, clearing his throat. "Can we talk?" I glanced around briefly, noting the curious eyes watching from nearby tables. "Make it quick, Pierce." He swallowed nervously, avoiding eye contact. "Look, I know I messed up. You think?" I said flatly. His shoulders slumped slightly. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly. I was selfish, stupid. I ruined my life and yours, and Rachel's, and I just needed you to hear that directly from me." I studied him carefully, feeling surprisingly detached. There was no anger left, just mild disgust and a sense of pity. "Your apology doesn't change anything, Pierce, but I appreciate the effort." He nodded slowly, accepting my response. "Fair enough. I won't bother you again." As he walked away, I watched him quietly, knowing that closure didn't always come neatly packaged. Sometimes, it came as simple acknowledgement, a quiet understanding of how profoundly someone's life could shift from one decision. I soon found a modest condo on the outskirts of the city, a place removed from painful memories. Each evening after work, I took long walks around the quiet neighborhood, gradually coming to terms with my new life. Occasionally, I dated lightly, a coffee here, a dinner there, but I remained guarded, hesitant to open myself up completely. Trust would take time. I understood that clearly now. One evening, my phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. Cautiously, I answered. "Garrett? It's Rachel." Her voice was gentle, uncertain. Do you have a minute? I considered briefly, then sighed quietly. What do you want, Rachel? She hesitated before speaking carefully. Nothing. Just, I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't change things, but I needed you to hear it. I appreciate that, I said evenly. I hope you find peace, Rachel. Truly. There was a pause, then softly, you too. We ended the call quietly, simply, without drama. In that moment, I felt something finally settle, an understanding that forgiveness wasn't for her benefit, but for my own peace. I didn't have to carry bitterness forward anymore. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in quiet oranges and blues, I sat alone on my balcony, feeling something new, something calmer. I'd lost a great deal, my marriage, my career, my stability. But what remained was stronger, clearer, a sense of purpose, dignity, and self-respect. I'd weathered the storm, and somehow, amidst the wreckage, I'd begun rebuilding something better, something real. This wasn't the life I'd envisioned, not the one I'd planned meticulously for decades. But it was mine, earned through pain, mistakes, and accountability. And for now, sitting quietly beneath a peaceful sky, that was enough. In the months that followed, life found its own quiet rhythm again. Not perfect, not untouched by past scars, but steady and predictable in a way that allowed me space to breathe. I attended family events sparingly, always cordial but reserved. Relatives tried to pull me into conversations about Rachel, the scandal, everything that had unfolded, but I skillfully deflected them. I knew their curiosity would fade with time. Eventually, they stopped asking, the drama of my life becoming old news, replaced by fresher stories. Rachel, from what I heard through mutual friends, had retreated further into herself. The community had distanced itself, and her circle of friends shrank noticeably. She'd found another job, quieter, less prominent, living modestly now. Occasionally, rumors surfaced about her dating someone new, but they always seemed casual, fleeting, never serious. I felt neither triumph nor pleasure hearing these things. Just a quiet recognition of how different our lives had become. We never spoke again after that brief phone call. It was better this way. Cleaner. One afternoon, months later, while picking up groceries, I bumped into an old friend, Lisa Monroe, someone Rachel and I had known for years. Her eyes widened briefly with surprise before her expression softened into genuine warmth. Garrett, hi. It's been a while. Lisa, I acknowledged with a polite smile. Good to see you. We exchanged small talk about work, life, the weather, safe subjects carefully avoiding what we both knew hovered between us. But eventually, Lisa hesitated slightly, concern visible in her eyes. Rachel came by the other day, she finally admitted, her voice cautious. She seems so lost. It's like she's still stuck, unable to move on. I nodded calmly, feeling no desire to delve into Rachel's struggles. We all have to find our own way forward. Lisa watched me closely, curious. What about you, Garrett? Are you happy now? I considered her question carefully, then answered truthfully. I'm at peace. Happiness, well, I think that comes with time. She smiled gently, understanding. You deserve it. You've been through enough. I appreciate that, I said quietly. It's been good seeing you, Lisa. I left her there, walking slowly back to my car, thoughtful. Lisa's words lingered, Rachel still struggling to find closure. But I had found mine already. Quietly, steadily, without fanfare or drama. My life now is quieter, simpler. I spent more time outdoors, hiking alone or fishing quietly at lakes I'd ignored for years. I read more books, cooked meals for myself, and enjoyed the simple satisfaction of a routine built entirely around my own preferences. Occasionally, I dated carefully, cautiously. I still believed in the possibility of companionship, but I guarded my heart closely. I wasn't ready yet to fully trust, not until I knew beyond a doubt that the other person deserved it. On the anniversary of the broadcast, a year since everything had unraveled so publicly, I found myself standing alone by the river that wound through our town. It was peaceful here, the sound of gently flowing water calming the remaining shadows in my mind. My phone vibrated suddenly in my pocket, a message from Evan, my lawyer, and now a friend. Evan, just checking in. Today must be tough. I smiled faintly, touched by his consideration. I typed a brief response. Garrett, I'm okay, truly. Thanks for checking. I turned off my phone, sliding it back into my pocket. There would always be reminders, dates, places, small triggers that brought back echoes of what had happened. But now, instead of pain, they brought reflection, a quiet acknowledgement of growth, lessons learned, and strength discovered. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a soft, golden glow across the river, A sense of genuine gratitude filled me. Yes, I'd lost much: marriage, stability, reputation. But in their place, I'd gained something far more precious: clarity, dignity, self-respect, and an unshakable resolve never to compromise those values again. As I stood there, a familiar voice broke through my thoughts. "Garrett." I turned, surprised, recognizing Will Franklin approaching slowly from the path nearby. I smiled genuinely. "Will, good to see you." He joined me quietly, gazing out across the water, sensing my contemplative mood. "A year today, right?" I nodded silently. He exhaled softly, thoughtful. "You ever regret it? Doing what you did?" "No," I answered honestly. "I regret how much pain everyone went through. But exposing the truth, I wouldn't change it." He clapped a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Then you did exactly what you needed to. No regrets." "That's powerful, Garrett." We stood quietly for several moments, simply sharing the peacefulness of the river, the soft breeze carrying away lingering shadows. "What's next for you?" Will finally asked gently. I looked at him thoughtfully, then smiled. "Whatever comes, I'll handle it. But this time, I'll do it on my own terms. And I won't look back." He nodded slowly, approval and respect in his eyes. "Good man. I think you're finally finding your peace." After Will left, I stood there alone a little longer, absorbing the fading sunlight, feeling a deep, quiet certainty inside me. The scars of the past year were still visible, still real, but they no longer defined me. My life wasn't perfect, and maybe it never would be, but it was mine. I walked slowly back to my car, a quiet confidence settling within me, knowing clearly now what mattered and what I deserved. Someday, perhaps, I'd find someone to share that clarity and peace, but until then, I'd wait patiently, content in my own company. In the quiet stillness of that moment, I finally understood something important. I hadn't just survived betrayal and loss. I'd risen above them, shaped and refined by fire, stronger and wiser because of it. Life wouldn't be the same as before, but in some ways, it was better, truer, and more honest. And as I drove home under the gathering twilight, I realized, without any sentimentality or bitterness, that this was enough. Just as I was, right now, at peace, unguarded, quietly proud, that was enough. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and share your opinion about this story in the comments.